The Legend of Zelda has been an established series since 1986, and I can count on one hand the amount of games that Zelda feels like an actual character in a game with her name in it. Ganon, Link, and Zelda are the three characters that come to mind when you think The Legend of Zelda. But two of those characters have noticeably more presence than the other. Ganon always makes sure his presence is felt in each game, especially when he's in his human form as Ganondorf. And Link, despite being a character that Nintendo claims is a blank slate, has many appearances where he shows a large amount of character and personality. But Zelda in majority of these games is just a princess and nothing more. I thought this was her legend. They should have just stuck with Link's Adventure as the title. However, there are a few Zeldas that actually have souls, and being a damsel in distress isn't their only quality as a character. Those Zeldas being the Zelda from Spirit Tracks, the Zelda from Wind Waker, and of course, Zelda from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Before I go into depth, I'd like you to think about which Zelda is your favorite. Alright, now that you visualized it, no, it's not Twilight Princess Zelda. I know she has the best design, well, second best design, but she's nothing more than a mannequin. She serves zero purpose. I feel bad for the person who designed her because they were cooking. And for those who pick Skyward Sword, yet another thing to add onto the long list of reasons why Wind Waker is the best Zelda game is their portrayal of the princess herself, and the lore runs deep with this one. Wind Waker is one of the two alternate futures taking place after Ocarina of Time. This one being a future where there was no hero to save the day when Ganondorf returned after Link disappeared to live his best life rolling around on a mountain as a Goron. Because of this, Hyrule was sealed underwater along with Ganondorf, and its citizens settled on the mountains which would become the islands later on. Since this wasn't experienced Ganondorf, the king didn't want to take any chances, so he took a piece of Zelda's Triforce to stow away, and she turned a couple shades darker for some reason. So naturally, she starts a pirate group because all black people are When Link meets Zelda, now Tetra, at the beginning of the game, she's introduced as the snarky and playful pirate captain. Despite being around the same age as Link, Tetra has a mystique about her and clearly more life experience. She knows everything we don't and is the most capable character in the game. Towards around the midpoint of the game, when Link becomes more capable and acquires the Master Sword, we get to see how Tetra and Link's dynamic shifts from superior and junior to peers as the level of trust has been established throughout their interactions in the game. This connection is made even more significant when after a failed mission, Tetra reclaims her piece of the Triforce, casting aside her melanin to become Zelda again. This comes as a major shock to her, and she has to rethink her entire life, which flips the dynamic between her and Link back to Superior and Junior, but this time with Link stepping up as a Superior with his new life experiences to guide the confused Zelda. All of this Zelda/Tetra lore complements Link's ongoing story really well. Looking at Tetra and how her role changes puts Link's growth into perspective, making her character necessary and her transformation to Zelda more relevant to the player as opposed to just a princess that needs saving. There's even a really cool moment at the end where Zelda reclaims a bit of the fire in her spirit to fight side by side with Link as he faces Ganondorf in the final confrontation. By the time the story ends, it feels like Zelda and Link cultivated a real relationship. Instead of being used as a plot device, the story is written in such a way where Zelda is an active character, as she should. She's one of the most important people. I really like this incarnation of Zelda because of how she integrates in the story, but this one I have more of a personal affinity for. Spirit Tracks isn't that good. I didn't really like the gameplay at all, but I really like this incarnation of Zelda. The Zelda from Spirit Tracks is probably the realest version of Zelda that exists. When the kingdom was in danger and it was time to save the day, she's like, alright Link, go do your thing. I'm the princess, I'm not supposed to do the saving. In my personal headcanon, that's how every Zelda wished they could address Link. The satire is really refreshing to see after so many stale versions of Zelda. It's nice to see the dynamic commented on and challenged. And despite her protests in helping her kingdom, she actually accompanies Link on his adventures side by side, arguably being more useful than Link and being a far more interesting character than Link. She's quirky in all the right ways, and I think we need more Zeldas like her. I think we need more female leads like her in general. I promise, this is not recency bias. In fact, my nostalgia for Wind Waker is so strong, I didn't even want to admit to myself that this would be the case. But this is definitely the best version of Zelda that we've gotten so far. It's kind of unfair since she had 2 entire games to blossom as a character, but so did Tetra. and they did nothing with it, so I guess it is fair. In Breath of the Wild, Link and Zelda have already been introduced to each other before the player has any input on the story, and when you get the first memory, you see her appointing Link as the Hylian champion and her personal knight to prepare for Ganon's return. In a ceremony so depressing that all the other champions can't help but comment on how pissed she looks.
Gee, this is uplifting.
For majority of the memories, she pokes and prods at Link, questioning his skills at every turn when she knows Link is that guy. Bitching and moaning at him to cover up her insecurities because he's secure in his abilities and she hasn't tapped into hers. I've talked to some people saying that this makes her a good character because she has internal conflict, etc, etc. I don't give a fuck, honestly. Taking out your internal anger on people who have nothing to do with it is cringe in real life and in games. Eventually she stops being a bitch and interacts with Link as a human being instead of a walking reminder of her failures, where she becomes slightly more tolerable. So she decides to include Link in the research she so loves instead of ducking and dodging, leading up to everyone's favorite scene. Horny ass niggas. Y'all tripping. Couldn't be me. Eventually, she's forced to return to reality. She can't spend all day doing whatever she pleases and has to lock in to get ready to save the kingdom. So she proceeds to throw more tantrums. But I can't even blame her for this one because being forced to try and achieve something you failed to do time and time again is very frustrating. Unfortunately for her, she doesn't get her heroic moment where she awakens to her power and saves the day. She's too late. Her family dies, the champions die, a huge majority of the citizens die, and the kingdom is lost. Crushed by the weight of her overwhelming failure, she doesn't know what to do other than to break down and cry. It wasn't until the very last moments when her and Link were almost thirsted by the Guardians that Zelda awoke to her powers, providing a glimmer of hope to Hyrule in a dire situation. Despite the kingdom being a shell of its former glory, Zelda resolved to play the long game, bringing Link's banner to the respawn beacon and sealing Ganon away until Link was able to fight again. I didn't like Zelda at all in Breath of the Wild, and by the time I finished the game, back when it came out, I thought she was okay, but I wasn't completely sold on her character. I think she had great character development, but still wasn't likable. Tears of the Kingdom definitely changed that. Zelda wasn't all talk at the end of Breath of the Wild. Once Hyrule was restored after Calamity Ganon was defeated, she worked hard to restabilize the kingdom, having schools constructed, gaining the people's trust, and working to eradicate the malice still lingering over the kingdom, which is where the story of Tears of the Kingdom begins. The selfless attitude that Zelda cultivated throughout Breath of the Wild remained as her and Link ventured down into the cave, exuding enough malice to kill small animals from the aura alone. This leads to their encounter with Ganondorf, sending Zelda back in time. Yeah, we've been over this. Throughout the memories we see in Tears of the Kingdom, we get to see how much she's grown as a person, prioritizing the well-being of others instead of herself, choosing to aid Rauru and Sonia in the land of Hyrule's past instead of finding a way home. Even going onto the battlefield with the sages and Rauru to fight Ganondorf without hesitation. They seal Ganondorf, but he's going to come back, which is when Zelda is presented with an option to save the kingdom to prepare for his inevitable return, which she witnessed before she went back in time, building up to what I personally believe is the saddest moment in Zelda history. This scene was so powerful, and while it draws parallels to the sacrifice she made in Breath of the Wild, the act of selflessness in Breath of the Wild was a temporary one, just until Link returned. This was a decision that was meant to last forever. Can't have shit in Detroit though because Nintendo turned her back. I wanted her to turn back, but it would have been a hell of a lot more impactful if they didn't. Zelda is the real hero in Tears of the Kingdom. In Breath of the Wild, she waited for Link to do his thing, but in Tears of the Kingdom, she provided Link with the tools necessary to save the kingdom. It felt like her legend. She felt like the main character, and we were the hero that complemented her story. Which is what I love so much about this narrative and why I think the memories fit in more seamlessly and less shoehorned like they did in Breath of the Wild. Zelda's story is a good one and a human one. Even though I didn't like her at first, she became an admirable character. I'm glad she had her annoying period because when she became the best version of herself, I felt like it was earned. Zelda can be a great character when done right, and I think Nintendo needs to keep on their current trajectory of fleshing out her character. Zelda is so much more of a compelling game, and all the characters feel like they're living in a world making decisions instead of a world that exists to quantify their decisions. It makes the games better and makes it easier for me to connect with the story. I don't think there are any other Zeldas that are on the same level. If I missed some, let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Take it easy, and as usual, have a good one.